Hi AC friends, so I just want to document what I'm doing here. This is the fish tank at Main Street Dental Office here in my hometown. Been having fits with this tank lately. You can see the rainbow fish look great. Some of them have a little bit of white lips. They seem to get that when the water gets too soft, but I am remedying that. The trouble is, from about here over, the substrate has gotten inverted through a combination of a power head coming loose a while back and digging a big hole, and just the catfish digging pretty relentlessly. So basically I've got the soil on top of the sand. This is a sand over soil planted tank, and that silt had blown all over the place. I got a lot of crud on all the hardscape and on all the plants, all this. Can't really tell if it's growth or just silt at this point. It started out as just debris, but I think now it's turned into some kind of algae or bacterial growth. So what I'm going to try to do is give this entire third of the tank, pull all the plants out, give it kind of an extreme gravel vacuuming, which will remove hopefully all of that silt, probably most of the sand as well. And then I'm going to replace it with Eco Complete, which I just bought a good sized bag of, hopefully enough. And then maybe cap that with some more black sand, maybe not, we'll see how it looks. There's also a hole behind this boulder right here that you can't see. It's on the back side, but there's a big hole in there, so I'll probably fill that up with sand as well. And while I'm in there and have the water level low, I will go ahead and give this a Flourish Excel bombing and kill off whatever, hopefully whatever is growing on these leaves and keeping that dirt adhered to them. So that's the plan. We'll see how it goes. Alright, so I just want to point out these little feeder guppies. Came out of my daughter's pond over a year ago, and they're still going strong. There's about 6 of them. Really pretty. Prettier than some fancy guppies I've seen. Anyway, I've got this whole side deplanted now, except for the swords. I'm really hoping I can work around those, because it would make a horrible mess pulling those out. And I've got the serpent hooked up. The serpent, unfortunately, does not reach all the way into the bathroom to the toilet. So I'm going to have to vacuum into big buckets, and I'm going to just take the water level way down. Hopefully get all this crud out of here. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I am fairly frustrated at this point. Here is one reason why people order from online instead of just buying from the local fish store. The serpent kept clogging up and losing its vacuum, which was to be expected, but it was taking way too long. So I went down to my local fish store to get a gravel vacuum or a siphon. All they had was one of these piece of junk things that you have to jerk up and down in the water to get it to go. And in my experience, those usually work about 2 times before they break, and this one followed that pattern. So I'm going to have to go home and get my one that's actually got a squeeze pump on it. I really, really, really don't like using my own equipment on this tank, but at this point I don't have time to wait for Amazon to ship me one, so I guess that's what we'll do. Dang. But any local fish store owners out there, take note that sometimes if you stock junk, people have to buy online. Alright, progress. So I had to run home and get my other siphon, and I'm just going to make a quick little plug here. This thing that's got one of these bulbs on it, it's made by Python. That is the kind you want. Those ones that you have to jerk up and down to get out, they're too much work, but this one really works well. In fact, I'm going to have to find myself another one so I have a spare when this breaks. I've pumped out a lot of silt. I don't know if you can see, but the level of the substrate on this side is actually noticeably lower now. The rainbow fish are looking for things to eat. They're always trying to figure out a way they can turn anything that happens into an opportunity to eat. Anyway, I can wave my hand over the substrate now and nothing really kicks up except sand. Before, when I did that, there'd be a huge cloud of silt coming up. So, got it clean. As you can see, I had to drain about half the tank, 1 5-gallon bucket at a time, to get it that clean. But it's clean, relatively. So I'm going to go ahead and drain the tank the rest of the way, leave just an inch or two of water in for the fish to stay alive, bomb the daylights out of everything with a spray bottle full of only slightly diluted Flourish Excel, to kill whatever's growing on this. This soil has been on this stuff for so long. I don't know if you can see, but on the woodwork there's actually little bubbles forming, so I think I've got some kind of either bacteria or some variety of blackbrush algae growing on there and on all my plants. So I'm going to just bomb the daylights out of it with Excel. Probably cap that with some fresh sand, just a little bit, just to kind of anchor everything down, put the plants back in and fill it back up. So that's where we're at. Okay, so I got the python in, it's draining. Gonna drain it down to that level so there's just enough water to keep the fish alive. Not happy, but alive. And then I'll bomb the daylights at everything. This will take quite a while to drain this thing. It doesn't drain real fast. So this is where I get to mix up my Excel solution and call an old friend, sit down and read a magazine, that kind of thing. And then we'll fill it back up, and in a couple days we'll know whether this worked or not. Okay, so the tank draining is proceeding apace. One of the things I like least about this job is doing big water changes, because this thing is a real efficient piece of equipment, but that's a pretty small tube for that much water to go through. I wanted to say something else about this piece of equipment. One thing about it is this little bulb will get gunked up, and if it's got a little tiny piece of root or silt, or not silt, but wood or anything like that in it, it doesn't work. Fortunately, it comes apart pretty easy, and you can just clean it and then pump it up and get it going again. It's kind of handy, this particular tank. Here at the dentist office, we have a bathroom right around the corner, so I can just drain the tank right into the toilet if I'm draining clean water. Of course, I try not to flush 20 pounds of sand down the toilet or anything, which I would have done today, but anyway, just waiting for it to drain. Waiting. Fortunately, they have a fairly good selection of magazines, so there we go. Okay, so I'm out in front of the office now, rinsing out the sand I pumped out, so I can reuse it. A lot of you like to talk about your weather where you're at. This is early fall in west central Wyoming. There's Main Street right there. Yep, that's the busiest street in town. 6 o'clock on a Saturday night. Getting kind of pretty. Starting to get just a little chilly. I'm out here in a t-shirt and jeans and if I was sitting still for a real long time, I'd be cold. There's worse places to stand while you rinse out your sand. Okay, so I've got the tank drained down to just maybe 3 or 4 inches of water in the bottom. Now I'm going to take this spray bottle of about 7 capfuls of Flourish Excel, mixed in with a little bit of tank water. I'm going to spray the daylights out of everything that's exposed, which is most of the hardscape and most of the plants that remain. I have a bucket down here with another 8 capfuls of Flourish Excel mixed in half a gallon or so of tank water. I'll dump that in the bottom to get everything that's still below the water line, hopefully. And then I'll just kind of let that cook for a few minutes while I replant all the plants I took out and replace some of the sand and some things like that. And by the time I refill the tank, hopefully, it'll be, there we go. By the time I refill the tank, it'll be all cooked, and that algae and bacteria and all that crud will be not feeling well at all. So, that's the plan. Okay, so I got everything sprayed and the remainder dumped in. The rainbow fish are not amused by recent developments. They really don't like this, but I don't blame them. Try to be kind of scary, only having 3 or 4 inches of water in there. Anyway, now I'm going to mix a little of this Eco Complete in to the substrate over here just to replace the soil I took out, and replant the plants, and then we're good to go. So I'm replanting all of these little tiny dwarf Sagittarias that I had to pull out to clean the substrate, and it's taking a rather long time. It's kind of fun work, but honestly I'd just as soon be home having supper with my family. Oh well, we do what we have to do. It's kind of funny because you can tell that these little Endler hybrid feeder guppies, you can tell that they're a naturally shallow water species, because the rainbow fish are all completely freaked out, and the guppies are just kind of swimming around going, "Woohoo, this is awesome!" They're funny. I'm really glad I put those in here. It was just kind of on a whim that I did. They were in my daughter's little fairy pond, she calls it, a little tiny pond in her flower garden, and we bought a few feeders just to put in there, just to keep mosquitoes under control and give it a little activity. And at the end of summer, this was summer a year ago. At the end of summer, these little guppies were so pretty that we couldn't quite bear to just fertilize the yard with them or something, so I threw them in here just to see how they do, and the office staff tells me that they're a big hit with the kids. We just put males in. I don't want to mess with babies, but it's hard enough to catch anything out of this tank. But anyway, yeah, they're doing great, and they're kind of fun little critters. So I've got, oh man, a lot of dwarf Sagittaria to put back in here. I don't know if it's all going to go back in, I'll be honest with you. But I want to at least get a good grid pattern going so it'll form a carpet again. Anyway, things are going okay. Okay, so that project is all done, I'm happy to say. Got some more of a gravelly texture down here with the Eco Complete, which, by the way, I was really annoyed to find out that about a quarter of the weight of that was water, but I guess that's necessary since it's got bacteria. Anyway, over here it's more sandy. Lots of little bubbles from the water change. The fish are pretty stressed, and a couple of them even have little injuries. I actually dropped one of the lids into the tank, and I'm afraid bonked a couple of them, so hopefully that won't cause any damage. Also, a lot of them have this white lip disease, so I upped the hardness a little bit. It's about 19 degrees hardness now. It was 16, and I lowered the temperature down to about 68. So, I mean, I turned the thermostat down. It'll go down to that temperature gradually. Anyway, it is time for me to go. Before I do, I thought these guys deserved, oops, sorry for the bad picture. Thought these guys deserved a treat for putting up with all this, so I thawed out a bunch of bloodworms, and here they go. Shark Week right here. As soon as they figure out what's going on, they'll all be over here. Really hoping that cleaning and spray will get all the black gunk off my woodwork and stuff. Looks so good without that. Oh, I wanted to mention I added a very special plant, this little Anubias on the wood here. I accidentally pulled out of my Southeast Asia tank today, and of course Anubias doesn't belong in Southeast Asia, so I figured that's okay, but that plant was given to me years ago by someone a lot of us know as Lady Hobbs, who is no longer part of our forum anymore. She retired from the hobby and got on with other things, but anyway, that's where that plant came from, so that's kind of cool. Anyway, that is the project. We'll check back here in a couple of days and see if things are looking any better. So, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed spending the evening with me over here.